There may not have been gerrymandered districts per se, quote unquote, but there certainly were policies and practices and laws in place to socially engineer or politically engineer the outcomes of elections to prevent black people from being able to have any kind of say at all.
Mm-hmm.
So to act like none of that happened for over 400 years in the United States of America, to act like none of that happened from 1619 to 1965, and then now all of a sudden, oh my God, we can't have this.
Right.
Are you serious?
Alrighty, welcome in. It is your favorite political podcast. It is Alabama Politics This Week with Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, Dave?
Man, I'm doing all right. You know, the weather's a little tricky right now, but I'm doing okay.
It's a little bit of a rough morning. We started we do this on Wednesdays, and we started out with a nice thunderstorm first thing this morning, which is always great for some thunder dogs that we have here at our house that don't really care for the thunder. So it's always fun. Listen, it looks like we'll see how the rest of the day goes. At least up here, it doesn't look like it's going to be that much, in terms of severe weather. But into the middle parts of the state could be a little bit more. But and you're busy, right? You're a busy man.
Busy day to day, man. Got stuff to do, and of course this is important, but I also got other stuff that's important. So it's just one of those. This is just a busy season right now.
Yeah, man, it has been so crazy the last little bit. These daggum elections and and things have just really taken off. But anyway, so listen, we'll talk. We'll get we'll do the important thing here, and then get David out to do the other important stuff. And so, but before one important thing we need to tell you about before we get started is our friends at Wind Creek Entertainment, who help this thing go along and help us get this thing out to all of you guys. They are great. They operate 3 fantastic casino resorts in this state in Montgomery, Wetumpka, and Atmore. Wetumpka and Atmore being the crown jewels, of course. And I highly encourage it. I'm telling you now. I'm telling you. Stop and stay. Hit OA on the way down as well with the kids on the way to the beach. Y'all just have yourself a nice little time. It is fantastic little places to stay. I'm sorry, and I've got one of the Thunder dogs over here making racket. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. It's so they're just but listen, if you're going on vacation, you're leaving, you're going down to the beach somewhere, just hang out. Stop and stay with Wetumpka if you're coming from North Alabama, or if you're headed down from somewhere Birmingham on down. Stop and stay at Atmore. It is breaking up the trip. You're not going to regret it. They've got things for everybody to do at these places. They are top notch. It's some of the best service that you will ever receive anywhere in the state. Go and check them out. Look them up online at Wind Creek Entertainment, and you'll be happy that you did. All right. So we are still in the midst of our season of the white people, the white people doing the white people things, and I don't know what my people are doing, man. It's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing to watch what's taking place. It's embarrassing to see so many Republicans out, talking about how they can steal these seats, how they can draw maps. I'll tell you, I was having a conversation with my dad the other day, and he said, I think he's probably like a lot of folks out there, where he kind of follows politics, and he'll read some of the things that I write and some of the stuff that we write at APR, but he's not, it's not an everyday thing. He's not immersed in it like you and I are. He's not. That's not his job. It's not. And he said something that I think that resonates through a lot of people, which is, it used to be that gerrymandering was this thing that we all kind of knew happened, but that everybody pretended that didn't happen because it was so frowned upon. And, and now it's like, when did that change? When did it change that it became okay for everybody to just gerrymander the hell out of everything, And I said, well, like with most things, Trump is what happened. I mean, I've never in my life did I imagine a president of the United States, sending instructions to his party in Congress saying, hey, let's just gerrymander these people out of here. We're about to lose bigly. Let's lose by less bigly if we just cheat. And that's what's happening. And I mean, and the folks in Alabama, and now you hear them, making these excuses for things, and and pretending as though, I had a guy tell me the other day, if black folks really had good candidates, then we wouldn't have to draw special districts for them. So they could get there. I said, what the fuck are you talking about?
What
are you talking about? Do you look at these districts? What do you mean? We wouldn't have to draw. I said, are you out of your mind? This is the nuttiest thing I think I've ever heard. I said, honestly, that's one of the more racist things I've ever heard anybody say is this nonsense right here. I said, you're excusing cheating because in some of the dumbest way possible. It just, that makes absolutely no sense what you're saying. All of these districts are drawn. All of them are drawn.
And it makes, and embedded in what he said is the presumption that he or white people know better the kind of candidates that black people need. What the freaking what?
It's the most frustrating thing in the world to listen to these people and to hear them rationalize it. And that's what I said, do you think voting districts fall from the fucking sky? Is that what you think happened here? That all these other ones were all the ones where the white people came in, that they were drawn, that they came down from the heavens? That what are you talking about? I said, look at these damn districts, man.
And also, and this is why I wish people really understood history better. If you go back, before 1965, basically what you had was an Alabama, where white people completely controlled the voting process, the political processes, where all of the elected officials were all white, and that was because it was engineered to be that way. There may not have been gerrymandered districts per se, quote unquote, but there certainly were policies and practices and laws in place to socially engineer or politically engineer the outcomes of elections to prevent black people from being able to have any kind of say at all. So to act like none of that happened for over 400 years in the United States of America, to act like none of that happened from 1619 to 1965, and then now all of a sudden, oh my God, we can't have this.
Right.
Are you serious?
I mean, well, listen. No one has been affected more negatively by equality than white people. Okay, that's the first thing. No one has been more affected by it. And so it's so idiotic, because, and I tell people, look, on the best day out here, Kay Ivey, for example, very popular governor, very popular. She manages to win this state over Walt Maddox. It was, less than 20 points, and so we're talking about a 55, 58-ish, 42, somewhere right around in there.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not talking about a whole We're not talking about the. I mean, people love to act like this place is just red to the bone, and that there are no Democrats
Right.
running around here, you know,
Right.
and it's not. And on top of that, we know that the overwhelming majority of black voters in this state are vote democratically, and we know that there are 27% of the population, are black folks in this state. Then we have another set of
Mhm.
minority people and Hispanics that make up 3 to 5%. You know, it just. So this idea that we can just come in and wipe the board clean because Republicans hold a majority is idiotic and really speaks to our lack of math, understanding.
Well,
Really.
I think again, Josh, people what they're counting on is that people are forgetting. They're forgetting, as you're pointing out, that there's basically with every election, even when Democrats have had, if I'm going to be frank, piss poor candidates running for statewide office, you pretty much get a 60-40 breakdown.
Yes. Yes.
Somewhere that's relatively close to that 60-40 breakdown. That's not ruby red.
Mm-mm.
That's not, we're a completely conservative state. That's not that at all.
No,
But they're
no.
counting on people to not think about that. They're counting on people to forget that.
Yeah. Well, and they're also counting on the fact that the way they've already gerrymandered the state is going to lead people to believe that it is this way. And look, I get that every statewide office is held by a Republican. That is absolutely true. They have won the statewide election because they have a majority in statewide voters. Okay, that is true, but that's not what the representation for Congress, for the state Senate, for the state House is supposed to be. We are putting the reason why there are so many of those different people and they come from different areas of the state is because you're supposed to have representation of those different areas and the different peoples of those areas. And so you can have a group of folks who can represent everybody and their interests are then presented to the full body. And so that's the way this is all supposed to work. We're all supposed to have compromise. And I said yesterday, I can't imagine as idiotic as I think most Republican policies are, all right, and as damaging as I think they are to working people. I truly do think that most of them are damaging to
Yeah,
working
we're agreed
people.
on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I would never, ever say that they should not have a place at the table, that they should not have a voice to voice those things, that we should not all come together and work out some compromise with each other, using both ideas from both sides to meet in the middle to create something that's good for everybody. Because I do think that there are interests out there at the corporate level, at executive levels, at rich folks levels that I don't necessarily appreciate. Okay. And I think that those things can be, if we have policy that works for them, that those things can be beneficial for the full body of folks. But I don't necessarily see it. And so maybe these folks do see it and they bring that to the table. It's the same way with a black representative from the Black Belt. There are things happening there that we all need to fucking know about. Okay. And there are things that are happening in those communities that we need to learn and understand. And there is suffering that's taking place there. And there are accomplishments that are there. There are opportunities to be had there that we don't all understand. And they do. And that's why it's important to have that representation.
Well, it used to be that there was a much healthier dynamic with the political parties where you would have moderate Republicans, truly moderate Republicans, and in some cases even liberal Republicans, where you used to have conservative Democrats or moderate Democrats, and it wasn't considered the end of the world. But about 30 or so years ago, when you had the rise of people like, the late Rush Limbaugh and others
Mm-hmm.
who really began to elevate conservatism and demonize anything else that wasn't conservative, and commodified this, started making money off of this, and creating this sort of space where there was a factory of this kind of thinking and talking through the media, that we really began to see a decline in, this more nuanced approach to politics, which leads to what you're talking about, Josh, where people are more inclined to talk across the aisles and to work at problem solving from not so much a partisan standpoint, but a philosophical standpoint, to try to really come up with solutions that benefit the people. That's all down the toilet now, man.
Yeah, you're right. It and you've seen it on the Fox News stuff. It made it even worse, where it just kind of divided everybody into teams, and you had to believe, you've got to believe that your team is always right, and the other team is full of America hating communists. That want to destroy everything that this. Yeah, you hear them talk about it. You hear Tommy Tuberville and some of these other people say some of this ignorant shit all the time, which is it's the dumbest thing. But they effectively turned compromise into a flaw. I mean, they've actually run ads in primaries against some of the more moderate Republicans, calling them out for compromising with Democrats. He compromised with Democrats on X, Y, and Z. And so it when you do that, you undermine everything that this government was built to do. I mean, you do. I mean, you undermine it all, and you see it now too with them fighting so hard to do away with the filibuster. And look, I don't necessarily disagree with some of that. I do think that there should be on the filibuster, that you should have to stand there. It should have to be a talking filibuster. It shouldn't just automatically be 60. But at the same time, it's all about compromise. We've split the country. And they can't compromise. We can't compromise and get anything done. And so now they want to do a simple majority of whoever's in majority. And honestly, they should probably Democrats should probably just let that happen. And then we'll just see how how these midterms fall, and then we'll just then we'll roll on with some good majority rules come post 2027. But it's so frustrating to me to listen to people try to justify the cheating that they're doing now in elections. And you can say, look, well, you know what, well, Democrats are doing it up in okay, I'm fine. Listen, all I want is this. I want a set of parameters that we all agree on that should go into creating voting maps. Okay, I want a set of parameters, whatever they may be, keeping counties together, keeping communities of interest together, working out the demographics of everything. I keep it all together, put it into a computer, let the computer spit the thing out. That's all I want. That's all. I want a fair map for everybody, and however that falls in California and in Alabama is fine with me. As long as it's fair and everybody is getting a voice in this thing and everybody has an equal representation and their vote matters the same as everybody else, then I'm fine with that. Okay? I mean, that I don't care. I really don't. It's such, I honestly, I can't wrap my head around the argument against that. I've never heard an argument against it that meant anything at all. I mean,
parody. Yeah.
So
what's so unreasonable about parody? But again, if the collection of power is what's motivating you, and if there's financial incentive for that as well, and I will also add, if there's some kind of zealous ideological motivation involved, which for some people that's also a part of this whole thing, then you end up with what we've got right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you know, man, it just it's I don't know. You know, watching them and listening to some of the things that they say, you know, and how they're trying to do this. First of all, they're screwed. You know, Steve Marshall and Edmund LaCour screwed them on this whole thing. You know, when they did. I mean, it's comical now to watch. And I wrote, you know, Alabama is going to be tripped up by its old racism on its way to do new racism.
Yeah.
And you know, and because that's what happened, you know, the idea is so stupid. And this is really why KIB called this special session, is because everybody was haranguing her to do this thing, and she wasn't going to do it. She initially put a press release out saying, you know, we're going to wait and see what happens with the courts and stuff, and we're not going to do this. And then, you know, the White House and everybody else started calling and putting pressure on her. And finally she said, you know what, the hell with it. It's not going to work anyways. We'll do it. We'll waste a couple $1 million to send everybody down here and do this thing. And so, you know, but what they did, and I'll tell you exactly why they screwed this thing up, is, you know, the court in the Louisiana case did not just overturn the Voting Rights Act. They said, I think stupidly, that race cannot be the primary motivating factor in drawing districts. Even if you're coming back to draw a district that alleviates a problem where racial gerrymandering took place. Okay. Even if you're trying to alleviate racial gerrymandering, using race to fix that is not something that you can do. Now, I think that's stupid as shit, but okay. All right. You can't do that. But the idea that we in Alabama are now going to be able to go back to our old maps from 2020 is so idiotic, because this same Supreme Court told us that these maps are racially gerrymandered. All right. Illegally racial gerrymanders. That's what they called them. The federal court, the lower courts called them that. The Supreme Court upheld it not once, but twice. They upheld it and told, you know, remember all the surprise of everybody going, whoa, I can't believe that happened. And then when we had the opportunity to redraw those maps in another special session, the Republicans said, nah, fuck that, we ain't doing that. The Supreme Court didn't really mean it. They didn't really mean that. Yeah. They just said that. And so don't worry about it. We're not going to do that. And so they didn't draw. And so now we're left with these maps that are illegal racial gerrymanders, which they have just said in that ruling, we're not going to do that. And they specifically mentioned the Alabama case, Allen v. Milligan, and Alito talked about it and said, this does not overturn Allen. You know, you still can't have the illegal gerrymanders in this thing. So, you know, that is, to me, it is the height of stupidity and racism, and how very often in our people's ignorant pursuit of a racist agenda, they do really stupid things to trip themselves up. And I think this is another one of those cases.
That's because racism inherently is stupid.
Yes. Yeah. And practiced by really stupid people. All right. Okay. We gotta slide out. We got a nice slate of guests for you today. Starting with Mike Marshall, correct? We'll get him in. We'll come back. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. We'll be right back.